One day I'm gonna be everything I wanna be. I don't let it get the most of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be everything I'm gonna be. My future right in front of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be free. Then let me be free.
From the depths of darkness, a voice emerges. A host with a fire burning in his soul. With a heart, steel, and a spirit unbroken. He rides on two wheels, ready to claim his throne. Amidst the chaos and the thunderous roar, insane wheels rise as a force to be reckoned with. Fueled by the power that only metal can bestow, he takes his stand, refusing to submit. Insane wheels hear his battle cry. Metal and mayhem will never die. Rituals report he paves his way. Oh, legend in the making, day by day.
Well, we have magically made it to Titty Thursday. Great to see everyone in the chat, man. Hopefully everyone's enjoying themselves. I definitely know that we are. All right, got to give a big special shout out to Motobomb Virginia, the coffee crew, Sick Bastard, and thank you guys for the raid, man. And I'm very honored to have your guys' support. All right, so we got a big, a lot to discuss this morning, as we always do. It seems like it's always that way. Hegseth faces heat. This is day 2 of him doing the whole hearing stuff. We're not going to listen to much of that because it's an all-day thing. We're going to get highlights later, essentially. It's just an all-day thing. So anyways, just know that that's happening. And then we have the White House correspondent dinner suspect in court, as well as Iran latest. So let me go ahead and give you guys the chronological breakdown of the timeline of what we're looking at here. So one of the very first things that we're going to be discussing, the first story of the morning, is the U.S. Supreme Court limits Voting Rights Act. Yo, that is going to cook a certain side. Regards to the racial gerrymandering that happened down there in Louisiana, that was actually the big story right there. Anyways, we'll get to that here in a minute. And then we have Florida approves new congressional redistricting map, and that adds 4+ seats, it says. It says Florida lawmakers have approved a new congressional map proposed by Governor Ron DeSantis. The Supreme Court also on Wednesday, in a 6-3 decision, limited the use of the landmark Voting Rights Act. So we're going to get into that. There's a lot going on with that. There was even protesters in there. Of course, as you guys know, when this passed 6-3, there was protests in there, people losing their shit. There was this black woman, actually. She had this megaphone. I don't even know who she was, but I did see the clip, and she was on the megaphone screaming and protesting inside there right when it passed. And then we have Comey appears in court over alleged Trump threat. Legal fight takes shape. Now, this is an update on the whole thing with Comey, and we're going to get into that in a bit. Then we have lawmakers question Hegseth as Trump rejects Iran's Hormuz proposal. Now, this was yesterday. Now, this is kind of like what I was saying about Pete Hegseth getting grilled by Congress or whatever. It's an all-day event. So we have that highlight stuff for you this morning. Sorry, my cat was trying to get in the windowsill where she's not allowed to. All right, Trump's border asylum ban ruled illegal by appeals court. So this is something to do with an asylum ban. I'm not really sure the entire ruling on this, so I'm not going to give my side of what I think because I really don't think anything yet until I know the facts, and we're going to go over the facts here in a minute. And then we got GOP-backed congressional congressional map approved in Florida ahead of midterms. Let me go ahead and see if there's anything in here. after lawmakers in the state, meaning Florida, approved a sweeping congressional redistricting overhaul during a special session. According to our partners over there at Fox 13 Tampa Bay, the motion advances a controversial new map that could dramatically reshape the state's political boundaries and spark immediate legal battles. Now, this goes for the entire South, actually. You're going to see it's not just going to be Florida or whatever. You're going to see a lot of this change happen, actually, with the congressional maps. I'm sure you're going to see all of the South pretty much change. And then let's see what's after that. We got Trump won't end war unless Iran makes nuclear weapons deal. So this comes out 3 hours ago. Trump is rejecting Iran's new ceasefire proposal over nuclear talks. Iran's most recent offer for resolving the 2-month war would set aside discussions of its nuclear program until the conflict was concluded and Strait of Hormuz issues are resolved. However, President Trump wants a nuclear deal before the war can end. And then we have King Charles, Queen Camilla, to bid farewell on last day of U.S. state visit. Now, of course, this is happening today. Just happened, I guess, an hour and a half ago. I guess King Charles is leaving, so no problem with that. And then one interesting thing that happened just an hour ago is Grady Judd, as you guys know him over there in Florida, sex trafficking Santa arrested in Sting in Florida. A Florida man known for playing Santa Claus at Polk County Christmas events. Wow. Was one of nearly 20 people arrested during an undercover operation that focused on child predators. According to police, 68-year-old Thomas Allen Hicks, that's his name, the Santa, who often plays Santa, responded to an ad on a known prostitute site. The ad was posted by an undercover detective that offered a 15-year-old girl for sex. Oh my fucking God, dude. I can't stand people. And then one of our last stories here that just came out 27 minutes ago, Trump assassination attempt. New photos show suspect in hotel room, DOJ says. Now, I'm surprised that it's making headlines now when this, I saw the updated pictures yesterday when we got off the show. I was like, oh shit, that motherfucker, he was in the hotel, took a little, not a selfie, but he took a picture of himself in the mirror and you can see the weapons on his body, you know? But anyways, real quick, let's go ahead and do our call to actions and all that, and then we'll get into the craziness. Make sure you guys hit the like button and double tap that screen if you guys are on the vertical side. I very much appreciate that. It's free to do so. And you know what else is free is hitting that subscribe button. This is what we do Monday through Friday. And then, of course, Saturday morning for members only. Now, please consider becoming a member starting only at $3.99 a month. Making sure we're not breaking the bank out there with anybody, but check it out. This is what allows us to be on these airwaves as well as have these lights on up there. So very much appreciate you guys becoming members and staying members. And then a little side note here, follow my Instagram at BallValveTV, where I post everything behind the scenes of not only my life, but as well as the show, Millennial Food Time breaking news, as well as the campaign trail, man. It's a great way to get a hold of me one-on-one. And we also have a Discord server for all of you legends. This is where we continue the conversation after the show because we only are live for about an hour. So we like to continue these conversations. Go into the video description down below, and that's where you're going to have that invite link for the Discord. And last but not least, all super chats, super stickers, gifted memberships, and membership signups are, of course, all going to be presented live and shouted out onto the show. But if you guys would like to skip that YouTube 30% brutal cut that they take from your hard-earned cash, we have these platforms that are scrolling around the screen, and anytime you guys can donate to these, and I get 100% of the proceeds, and I will read out loud whatever comes our way, just like a super chat. I've got my email up. We're going to be always scanning, right? All right. Good morning to everybody. Great to see everyone in the chat, man. I'm very blessed to have you guys' engagement here this morning. Let's see. We got Motobomb Virginia, who rated us this morning, by the way. Appreciate you. Good morning. We got Sterling Will. Kind sir. Great to see you. We got Wildcard in the building, as well as Naomi and Rabbit of Chaos. Thank you all for being here. We got TVT as well as Steve Easy and Gary. Let's see. We're running our way down as fast as possible. We got Charles Darwin from Down Under. Great to see you, bro. We got KP as well. Scrolling. We got Mr. Al Patterson. Your opening monologue last night was so badass on the Diamond Effect. Wow, Al Patterson. I really, really appreciate that. I actually was thinking that I should go back and clip that little moment, but I was thinking like, well, maybe I'm just overthinking it or whatever. But thank you for that. Maybe I will go do that, and maybe I'll upload that little piece or whatever. We got Charlie Rose in the building as well. Good morning to you. We got Mr. Jack Talcott. Always appreciate you as well, and blessings to you, kind sir. We got Magic Man as well. Good morning to you. Scrolling. We got Look It Up with Poncho, my man, as well as Huggy. Thank you, guys. We got Miss Lotus as well. Scrolling. And it looks like we are pretty much now all caught up. All right. Great to see everybody in the chat, man. I try to show a little love to everybody. Anyways, let's go ahead and start this off. U.S. Supreme Court limits Voting Rights Act. Let's go ahead and get into this.
I do want to get to some breaking news with the Supreme Court.
Breaking news yesterday.
And I did want to share this with you right here. The breaking news that the Supreme Court has struck down a majority black congressional district in Louisiana, weakening a landmark voting rights law's protection against discrimination in redistricting. And I did want to share just a little bit more information as we continue to follow this breaking news coming as we were sharing that live hearing with you with Secretary.
What's up, Ghost? Great to see you in the chat, my man. Good morning.
Hegseth. The Supreme Court limiting the scope of a key Voting
well.
Rights Act provision that restricts how states draw districts, affecting minority voters, constraining states' use of race as a factor when drawing congressional maps ahead of.
Right. And that's exactly what was not allowed originally. It's going back to where it was, how it was originally supposed to be, right?
The 2026 midterms. Justices for the 6-3 majority ruled that Louisiana's newly redrawn congressional map, which created a second majority black district, constituted an illegal racial gerrymander. The justices did acknowledge that compliance with the Voting Rights Act can be compelling interest for states, but they ruled that it did not require Louisiana to create the new map with a second majority black district. Compliance with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, quote, as properly construed, can provide such a reason. That is what Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the majority, saying, quote, correctly understood, Section 2 does not impose.
In all fairness, Ghost, I think that most men shouldn't be able to vote either. You know what I mean? Just a little hot take.
At odds with the Constitution, and it should not have imposed liability on Louisiana for its 2022 map. Adding compliance with Section 2 thus could not justify the state's use of race-based redistricting here. While the ruling does not overturn the Voting Rights Act or Section 2, it is likely to narrow how minority representation influences multiple states' congressional maps and trigger a new wave of legal challenges over congressional boundaries. That case was first argued last March before the Supreme Court and centered on whether Louisiana's 2024 congressional map, which had added a second majority black district.
You see Jimmy Mack? I don't see him in here.
Amounted to an unconstitutional racial gerrymander.
Oh, there he is.
Continuing to follow the very latest development.
My bad, my man. Good morning to you, Jimmy Mack. Great to see you in the chat.
And we also
happy Titty Thursday.
Have this from Chad Pergram saying from colleagues Shannon Bream and Bill Mears, the Supreme Court has tossed out a revised Louisiana congressional map that added a second black majority district, a voting rights ruling that could have major political and social implications in future federal elections. The timing of the 6-3 decision along ideological lines authored by Justice Samuel Alito, which we did quote right there, may limit impact on other redistricting efforts in a time to affect the November midterms, with several states already beginning early primary voting. And I also wanted to share this with you as we are also continuing to watch other rulings from the Supreme Court. These are just three main points right here that we wanted to bring to you. The first is that the court unanimously sided with Faith-Based Pregnancy Center challenging a New Jersey investigation of its practices. As we also mentioned, the court ruled Louisiana's congressional district is unconstitutional gerrymander, limiting a key tool of the Voting Rights Act. And also the court will hear arguments today on ending legal protections for Haitian and Syrian
migrants. So that's crazy. I'm going to be honest. If this is the case and this all sticks, the Republicans might actually win the midterms on this. This is what I call it's a blender. You know what I mean? Like you didn't see it coming. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this next story here. Florida approves new congressional redistricting map. Now this should add they say 4+ seats. So 4 or 5 seats. For the Republican side. So let's go ahead and figure out what Ron DeSantis is doing over there in Florida. And then there was even a protest that happened in there right as the voting happened in at the state house in Florida over there.
Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. As promised, we are going to continue on with our top story.
I think it happened at the state house, but you know what I'm saying.
In breaking news, I do want to get to this piece of information that just came into our newsroom a short time ago. It's here from the Associated Press. We have an update there on some of the maps in Florida. We do know that the Florida legislature just approved a new congressional map intended to maximize Republicans' advantage in the state. This is a part of the national redistricting battle that President Trump launched at the head of this year's midterms. Ultimately, the vote came just
wow, that's crazy. Steve Easy says 10 Republicans voted to extend the Haitians staying here for 3 more years. Why?
Days after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis decided to unveil his proposal, the same day that the U.S. Supreme Court, of course, also rolled back a key provision of the Voting Rights Act. I do want to put up a picture on your screen so you're able to see what these new proposed maps are going to look like there in the state of Florida. You can see the districts changing, ultimately looking to flip up to 4 seats in this conversation. And so DeSantis's map could increase Republicans' advantage there in Florida's House delegation from 24 to 4, up from the current split of 20 to 8. This potential 4-seat gain is the same as what Virginia Democrats are expecting from a recent redistricting.
What's up, Miss Lotus? Great to see you in the chat, by the way. Good morning. And so here, obviously, where on the left side is what the congressional map is right this second. And then, of course, the proposed map that just got accepted is over there on the right.
Referendum, which is being challenged right now in a state court. And to talk a lot more about what we're seeing, not only there in Florida, but
good morning, Colorado Gamer. Hopefully you're enjoying the morning.
As it pertains to some of these conversations around redistricting, as well as that latest news from the SCOTUS there. I do want to play out this interview we were able to have that gave us an update on what's to come. Let's listen. Welcome into Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. We have big news coming from the Supreme Court today. This is a decision that is
no, I did not see that, by the way, Steve Easy. I'm going to have to investigate that.
Likely to affect the midterm elections coming this fall. I want to put this up from the Associated Press as this news just came down a few hours ago that the Supreme Court made a decision there in the Louisiana versus Callaway case. It came before the court focusing on the legality of Louisiana's congressional voting map. In a stunning 6-3 decision, the court struck down Louisiana's second majority Black congressional district and concluded that race-conscious redistricting under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is unconstitutional. In Louisiana, Black residents do make up roughly 1/3 of the population, and a federal court found that a map made after 2020 with only one majority Black district likely diluted Black voting power. The legislator then responded by drawing a second majority Black district.
What's up, KP? Hopefully you're enjoying the morning as well, by the way.
Required in similar circumstances. Ultimately, though, the Supreme Court.
Oh, we got Brother Pitbull over there also from across the pond over there in the UK. Great to see you, my man. Hopefully you're enjoying your afternoon, I guess, for you. Should be getting somewhat time into the evening.
Has now declared that remedy is unconstitutional. The ruling does.
What's up, Jamie? Good morning.
Louisiana's map, though, it is now marking a fundamental shift in the constitutional understanding of equality, voting rights, and Congress's power to enforce.
That's correct, Rainey. And hopefully you guys are enjoying the morning as well as chatting with Stacks, my man. Always appreciate you. Hopefully you're enjoying the morning as well.
The Reconstruction era.
Hit the like button, everybody. Let's get the likes up.
A lot more about what all of this means for voting rights all across the country. I'd like to bring into the conversation now Zachary Shemtab. He's the executive director of SCOTUS blog. Zachary, thanks so much for being with us here.
Well, I don't really need him to explain what's happening here. We already know what's happening. But I do want to see this map. This is what I want to see. So let's go ahead and back it up a little bit. Hopefully give some context.
There needs to be a showing of intentional racial discrimination for them to be successfully challenged. And in this particular case, when Louisiana drew its initial map after 2020 with one minority majority district, Black district, the court found that there was.
Okay, yeah. So it's 1600 for you when I start at 10 in the morning. So that's cool. Yeah, we're about 8 hours off.
Racial intention there. So that was essentially struck, but excuse me, that there was not racial intention there.
I think it's like 6 hours.
But when it was the later map, which when it was redrawn, that decision of the court was found to be racially motivated. So that one was struck and the prior map was brought into effect. I know that's all very convoluted, but I'm happy to unpack it and go through the...
Yes, please do that, by the way, Steve Easy, because I've always known that truthfully, I've always known that the East Coast, especially New England, not only from hearing from what you had to say yesterday, you just solidified what I had heard, but they really do know how to do it. Like they can have 40% of Republicans in the state, but show the entire state blue, the entire fucking state. So it's crazy. I mean, you'll see the county differences and stuff like that, but the state will ultimately be all blue. Everything is actually blue.
Different steps.
Absolutely.
Weird.
That's really what we want to do here on Live Now. As these decisions come down, they can be pretty intense with the legal jargon that's used. And so let's talk about ultimately what came out of the court today. I am going to put up this tweet that we have from...
But see, here's the thing. This, because it's a race thing, on this particular thing, I'm just being honest. It's going to affect the South the most. That's where you're going to see the South be, I think. I mean, because where are the majority of Black people in the United States? Simple. They're in the South. And that's exactly where you're going to see a change of gerrymandering, right? So in our congressional maps.
Fox's Chad Pergram that's focusing on the timing of that 6-3 ruling, which was ultimately written by Justice Samuel Alito. It was joined by his 5 fellow conservative justices, including Justice Thomas, writing a concurring opinion. The 3 more liberal justices, though, on the court dissented, with Justice Kagan then writing the dissent. With the current makeup of this...
So it's 40% Republican and have 0 seats. So 0 representation. That's fucking crazy.
Court, do any of these votes or opinions that came out today surprise you or take you off guard?
Frankly, no. At the end of the day, I think it was pretty predictable based on oral arguments and prior decisions of the justices where this case would go. The big question would be whether Section 2, which...
What's up, Brother Beezer? Shout out to my man. Hopefully you're enjoying the morning as well. And hit that like button for Titty Thursday. Absolutely. Double tap that screen if you guys are on the vertical side too.
Prohibits discrimination in voting would be struck in its entirety. The court did not do that in the majority opinion by Justice Alito. And the court instead said that, it set a higher bar for it, that you need to show clear intention of racial discrimination. The concurrence, Justices Thomas and Gorsuch, who are somewhat more conservative in this area, would have struck Section 2 altogether. And when it came to the dissent, a very impassioned dissent by Justice Kagan, joined by Justices Jackson and Sotomayor, they essentially said that Section 2 had effectively been struck by the majority, but they didn't want to say so, and that the Voting Rights Act had been, grievously wounded.
Man, this is a little bit wild. Let's see if we get, yes, there is an actual post, a statement of sort. It says, U.S. Supreme Court guts key provisions of Voting Rights Act. So this is coming from Congressman Troy A. Carter. So let's see what his statement is on this whole thing.
That we have from some of those representatives and others speaking out in the wake of this vote. Putting this up on your screen. This is from...
And he's a Democrat. So you know what he's going to say about it.
Troy Carter. He's Troy Carter Sr., excuse me. He's a Democrat from Louisiana, saying this. Today's decision by the Supreme Court is
from Louisiana even. Oh, shit.
Devastating blow to the promise of equal representation in our democracy. This ruling is far more than lines on a map. It's about whether Black Louisianans will have meaningful opportunity to make their voices heard. For decades, the court's majority has steadily chipped away at the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The consequences of this decision are immediate and severe. The hard-fought progress that led to the creation of 2 majority Black congressional districts in Louisiana is now in jeopardy. Let's be clear. This is not about...
Hey, Steve, real quick. Good on them for actually standing up in your whole, ladies' case. That's awesome. I'm glad, because the only way that you're gonna have some change. You got to remember, you're not working. It's not like you're striking from a company, from, like, let's say, a union perspective. No, you're striking against the government. In that case, you have a little bit more power to do those walks and stuff.
So-called colorblind principles. History has shown us time and time again that policies claiming neutrality, from literacy tests to
What's up, No? Good morning.
taxes, have been used to silence Black voices. Louisiana knows the history all too well. He continues on in that quite lengthy statement, but we did want to bring a portion of it to you here on Live Now from Fox.
So it's not shocking that he was going to be like, oh, these guys are trying to, basically suppress Black voices and all that stuff. Listen, it really doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with, this whole thing is left and right thing. Okay. Here's the problem is both sides of the coin don't like it when they do it to each other. They do it nonstop. If you're going to gerrymander over here, you can't be upset when they gerrymander when it's their turn. It's just the way of the road, dude. You know what I mean? And in their areas. So it's just so happens that this is probably going to affect the South the most, and you're going to see a lot of more red representation, essentially. All right. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. We got an update on the whole Comey thing, by the way. Comey appears in court over alleged Trump threat. Legal fight takes shape. And let's go ahead and bring this up, and we'll go ahead and quickly discuss it. Also, you know what we haven't done? We haven't done the money part yet. We're slow.
All right, just get the money part done.
Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
Denied.
But I still love you guys. All right, here we go. We're bringing it up.
Welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox.
This is a quick update, by the way. It's only a couple minutes.
Andy Mack. We want to follow up on a developing story as former FBI Director James Comey indicted for the second time in as many months.
Yo, Brother Bees are coming in with the 5 gifted memberships. Let's freaking go, my man. He's showing out some love. I very much appreciate that, my man. Thank you for making it rain in the chat and helping not only me, but you're helping 5 others in the IWF, my man. So thank you very much for that. It definitely goes a long way. All right.
Time after a social media post in which the
Thank you. I've been on top of
alleging
it this
that
morning.
he made threats to kill the president. He did surrender to authorities today and appeared in a federal courthouse earlier on today. As you can see, New York Post saying the former FBI Director James Comey surrendering to the feds on charges he threatened to kill Trump in a Instagram post. Fox News saying James makes a court appearance as the judge informs him each charge against him carries up to 5 years in prison. So some major developments that we were following yesterday. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche making this announcement, saying the charges with making a threat against the president by photographing seashells on a North Carolina beach. He was allowed to leave court on no conditions of release after a brief
infamous 8647 shell picture
hearing that lasted the better part of 10 minutes. Comey's latest indictment, which was brought to Tuesday, comes.
Yes. By the way, Steve, absolutely correct. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Double tap that screen if you guys are on the vertical side. I very much appreciate it.
Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche picking up the pace in cases the president has publicly been in favor of. The new case represents a reinvigorated effort there on the behalf of the DOJ. For more on this, let's go out to Doug Luzader on this new latest indictment.
What's up, Jim? Hopefully you're enjoying the morning as well. I definitely know that we are.
The feud between the president and former FBI Director James Comey continues, but the stakes are high here, with Comey accused of making what the administration has said was a clear threat. 8647. Is that a threat written in seashells in this picture posted by former FBI Director James Comey last year? 86 can mean to get rid of something, and President Trump is the 47th president.
You are not allowed to threaten the president of the United States of America.
Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche announced 2 grand jury charges against Comey related to threatening a president.
Well, they're back.
Comey responded in a Substack video defiant. He did delete the 8647 post last year, saying he didn't realize the numbers could be associated with violence. But, he says, he committed no crime.
I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary. So let's go.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant.
President Trump has led the charge against Comey, but prosecutors will face some hurdles.
Right out of the gate will come a First Amendment challenge.
Comey seems to imply in social media posts that he simply came across the shells already arranged to form the message. If that's not the case, he could face a serious issue.
If he was questioned and gave false information to federal investigators, that can be the basis of a charge.
Proving that may not be so easy. Comey's legal team says he vigorously denies the charges. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, let's go ahead and see. We're going to go ahead and bring this up real quick. Lawmakers question Hegseth. This was yesterday, just so you guys know. Today's day 2, and that's why I'm reiterating that. So this is a little bit of like a highlight, I'm assuming. Well, not probably a lot of that. There's going to be Hal Kempfer on this, speaking a lot on this, in which I really respect his voice, just saying. So this is going to be a little bit of like talking about what happened yesterday. Lawmakers question Hegseth as Trump rejects Iran's Hormuz proposal. So let me bring this up, and here we go.
All right, welcome back into Live Now. I'm Austin Westfall. You've been watching it here, and you might have watched it live for much of the afternoon. Secretary Hegseth facing nearly 6 hours of questioning from members of the House for the first time since the war in Iran began. He'll return to the Capitol tomorrow to face the Senate. Meanwhile, President Trump is telling Axios that he is rejecting Iran's proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for a lift of the U.S. blockade. Marine traffic giving us this live depiction of what it looks like in the Strait of Hormuz. Let's bring in retired Marine Intelligence Officer, national security analyst, and
real quick before he brings him on. And yes, freedom of speech doesn't include threats of harm, in particular as well to the United States president. Congress has actually said that. You know, they've passed that where you cannot threaten the president of the United States.
To the Strap podcast. Hal Kempfer, he's here with me. Hal, let's start off with the news of the day regarding the proposal, because you and I have been waiting to see what comes of the Iranians' proposal. After all, we're at the ceasefire right now because the president says that he was waiting for a proposal from the Iranians. President Trump told Axios that he's rejecting the proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for a lift of the U.S. blockade. Does this open up the possibility that all-out war could break out again sometime soon, perhaps this week?
Austin, it's very possible, although I would have to say the slow...
I was about to say anything's possible. I mean, shit, but I do want to hear what Hal...
deliberative way
got
that
to say.
President Trump kind of looked at it, evaluated it. He didn't dismiss it out of hand. He did actually review it and with his top aides. And then he came out and made the statement. It kind of leads me to conclude that this is more of a negotiation process, and he's not in a hurry, at least not this week, not in a hurry to start basically dropping bombs again. There's a lot of reasons why he'd be concerned about that. The big concern is that the retaliation by the Iranians may be going after
Gulf nations,
water desalination plants in the Gulf states. Which
exactly. And if that happens, that's going to put the whole region into total humanitarian crisis.
Could have catastrophic humanitarian impact. There's a lot of reasons why he'd want to...
Got brother Crystal Strange up in the building over there from South Africa, by the way. Good afternoon to you, kind sir. Great to see you in the chat.
Try and work out the pressure thing that we're doing now with the blockade. It seems to be having an effect. It seems to be having an effect in Tehran.
Yes, let's get the likes up, everybody. Double tap that screen if you guys are on the vertical side. Thank you, guys.
And I think he just wants to keep the pressure on.
So a statement coming in from Admiral Brad Cooper. I'll read it. Today, U.S. forces achieved a significant milestone after successfully redirecting the 42nd commercial vessel attempting to violate the blockade. This is a reflection of the outstanding work that America's sons and daughters in uniform are doing to prevent...
Wow. I didn't realize 42 commercial vessels have attempted to violate the blockade. Wow. And so the United States has turned around 42 commercial vessels.
Maritime commerce from entering or exiting Iranian ports.
What's up, Are We Not, man? Good morning.
There are 41 tankers with 69 million barrels of oil that the Iranian regime can't sell. That's an estimated $6 billion plus from which Iran's leadership cannot financially benefit. The blockade is highly effective, and U.S. forces remain fully committed to total enforcement. Hal, if you could put it into your own words, how do you define the efficacy of what the U.S. is doing with this blockade?
Well, it's actually working pretty well from what I can tell. It certainly has stopped the vast majority of maritime commerce going to and from Iranian ports. It has had some effect on.
And also, we're putting infrastructural problems on their oil right now. I mean, they're trying to export this shit, and you can't just have this shit sit on like your industrial shit. So there's going to be an infrastructural problem that they're already having right this second. And because the Iranian ports are blockaded right now by the United States, nothing is going in and out of the actual ports. So all their imports and exports have stopped. And so their economy is based off of oil sales and movement. And if it's all being stopped, well, you know that it's going to be an issue. Now, Iran has been dealing with extremely high inflation since December-ish, January. I think it was about January. But nonetheless, now they're going, it's a problem for Iran, actually.
Other commerce as well, because there's a naval blockade out there, but it really has. And one thing I would point out, when we look at that
What's up, Lily? Great to see you in the chat, by the way. Good morning to you.
AIS, automated identification system feed of showing ships in the Strait of Hormuz. If I'm a commercial carrier,
well, let me answer to that, Steve Easy, because they don't actually have the ships and the power to do it legitimately.
Whether I'm a tanker, a container ship, or a cruise ship, whatever, I am not going to put on my AIS. I'm not going to be, my AIS is going to go, I'm going to go dark, as they say. I'm not going to put on my AIS signal so that the Iranians can track me moving through the strait. Just not a safe idea to do something like that. So when we see very few blips going through there, that may not be reflective of how many are going through. They're simply trying to avoid identification by the Iranians, which means that we're stopping a lot of the ships that would go to Iranian ports or from Iranian ports. At the same time, there are a number of ships, not what it was certainly before the war, but there are a number of ships that are getting through that strait that are probably staying very quiet about it right now.
How would you define Iran's leverage in this fight as it stands this week?
Well, hold on. Before they get into that, because of all of this with that question that I just got, well, not question, what you said, Steve, let me tell you why Israel wouldn't be able to pull this off. I'm going to actually show you why. So this is off of one of my favorite channels where I get these step-by-steps of what's happening in basically all wars. Anything that's happening in the United States or in the globe, you can basically find it. Anyways, here we go. Let's go ahead and figure it out.
Why does the U.S. need 3-carrier triad in the Middle East? For the first time since the shock and awe campaign of 2003, the United States has transferred an unprecedented concentration of naval supremacy in this region. But where are the positions of each carrier in the Middle East? The USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Gerald R. Ford are currently stationed in the Northern Arabian Sea and Red Sea, respectively. The USS George H.W. Bush recently arrived in the Indian Ocean, completing the unprecedented 3-carrier deployment within the U.S. Central Command area of responsibility. But in part 1, why did they have to take such a long detour? The deployment of the Nimitz-class USS George H.W. Bush was a calculated logistical maneuver. Departing Naval Station Norfolk on March 31st, 2026, the carrier strike group did not take the traditional shorter route through the Mediterranean and the Suez Canal. Instead, the massive 100,000-ton vessel executed a 10,000-kilometer detour around the Cape of Good Hope, sailing up the eastern coast of Africa. The tactical logic. This route was deliberately chosen to bypass the Bab al-Mandeb Strait.
Now, we have discussed this strait a billion times, and this is overrun by the Yemen Houthi rebels. So, anyways.
Waters heavily contested by Houthis' anti-ship ballistic missiles and drone swarms, routing a high-value asset like a supercarrier through a narrow choke point presents an unnecessary operational risk. By taking the long way around, the Bush arrived in the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM area of responsibility.
Yeah, no, this kind of shit right here actually gives you kind of a more of a context than what you're just hearing in the media, because trust me, that this kind of shit I love too. So, anyways,
the Indian Ocean with its strike group completely untouched and maintaining the element of operational surprise, ready to reinforce the ongoing maritime blockade. This is part 2 of strategic positioning. As of late April 2026, the U.S. Navy has effectively surrounded the Arabian Peninsula, establishing 3 distinct vectors of attack and defense. U.S. Abraham Lincoln, the Vanguard, Arabian Sea. Positioned closest to the Iranian mainland in the Arabian Sea, the Lincoln is the spearhead. From this location, its air wing has immediate, unhindered access to the Strait of Hormuz and the southern coast of Iran, enforcing the blockade and conducting non-stop combat operations. This is the U.S. Gerald R. Ford, the western flank, Red Sea. The Navy's newest and most advanced supercarrier has been deployed for over 10 months.
And we only have one of those. So this supercarrier, we only have one of these in this class.
Operating in the Red Sea, the Ford secures the western approaches. While further from Iran, its escorts provide a massive umbrella of air and missile defense against proxy threats, and its aircraft can easily refuel mid-air to conduct deep penetration strikes across the region. Here is the USS George H.W. Bush, which acts as the southern axis for this operation. Currently moving up from the Indian Ocean, the Bush serves as the fresh reserve and the southern hammer. It brings a completely restocked magazine and arrested air wing, providing crucial relief and overwhelming reinforcement to the naval forces that have been stretched thin, enforcing the airtight blockade.
And they're about to show how they actually strategically use these carriers. So pay attention.
But how exactly do U.S. attack operations and logistical support actually work? Part 1, the naval pivot.
And they just showed the electromagnetic catapult. That's only on the General Ford, by the way. That's that one ship, the one super carrier that we've got. This is that new technology that's on that as well.
And logistical support actually work. Part 1, the naval pivot.
What's up, Kerry? Good morning.
The chess pieces are moving. We are tracking the largest naval redistribution since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The Pentagon is emptying the Pacific to flood the Persian Gulf. But where are all the U.S. nuclear carriers stationed when not at war? And how many will travel to Iran and the Middle East? On paper, the number is 11 nuclear-powered supercarriers, divided into 2 distinct classes. First, the Nimitz class. These are the 10 workhorses of the fleet commissioned between 1975 and 2009. Second, the Ford class. Right now, there is only one.
Correct.
The USS Gerald R. Ford. This new generation uses electromagnetic catapults to launch jets faster. Well, let's look at this scenario, what happened when the Department of War gives a green signal. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is typically stationed in the South China Sea to deter Chinese vessels. However, upon receiving flash priority orders, it can sprint to the Middle East in just a week.
So we've got 2, and then there's another one near Japan.
It has to transit the Malacca Strait, the choke point between Malaysia and Indonesia. This leaves the Pacific dangerously thin, with only the USS Ronald Reagan or its replacement, the George Washington, potentially available in Japan. The plan is to have 3 carrier strike groups operating in the Middle East within 10 days to form a pincer deterrent. Why do you really need a second and third aircraft carrier in the Middle East?
Now this is where it makes you proud to be an American, right here.
This is a convergence. When these 3 carriers converge, they will form a triad strike force capable of ending a war or starting one. Getting the new Gerald Ford to the fight is a logistical marathon. Currently operating in the Atlantic Theater, the carrier, along with the relentless destroyers of Strike Group 12, must execute a high-speed transit. They will pierce the Strait of Gibraltar, navigate the narrow choke point of the Suez Canal, and descend through the Red Sea. It's a 3-week race against time. But why? Why rush a second carrier to a region already patrolling with a Nimitz-class supercarrier? In modern naval warfare, the most dangerous enemy isn't a missile. It is exhaustion. A single carrier crew cannot fight forever. Humans need sleep, machines need repair. To solve this, the Lincoln and the Ford will not take turns launching one plane at a time. Instead, they will trade entire shifts. This is the doctrine of the battle rhythm. But why do you need this battle rhythm strategy for a carrier strike group? Imagine a floating city with nuclear fuel and 5,000 people. Without a system, it's chaos. Simply put, battle rhythm is the daily heartbeat of the ship. It synchronizes the admiral's decisions with the sailor's sweat. There are 2 pulses. First,
by the way, everybody, let's get the likes up. Double tap that screen if you guys are on the vertical side. Thank you, guys.
The operational pulse. This is the air plan. For 12 to 15 hours, the ship runs continuous cycle operations, launching and catching jets every 60 to 90 minutes. It is a deafening, non-stop assembly line of violence. Second, the command pulse.
Okay, how they
While
actually
jets fly,
deal with
commanders
this.
cycle through a fixed schedule of intel briefs, targeting boards, and night orders. Battle rhythm turns 24 hours of chaos into a sustainable routine of war. If you lose the rhythm, you lose the fight. Still confused? Let me simplify this further for
What's up,
two
Tiffany?
carriers
Good
working
morning.
together. From midnight to noon, the U.S. Abraham Lincoln owns the darkness. This is the night shift. The Lincoln, a veteran of the Nimitz class, relies on her experienced air wing and battle-tested steam catapults to hammer targets under the cover of...
That's the normal Nimitz class, what we have out there. And then you have the General 4 with the electromagnetic.
night. For 12 hours, she launches wave after wave, but as the sun climbs high, her shift ends. By noon, the Lincoln recovers her last jet and goes quiet, entering reset mode for maintenance and crew rest. But the enemy gets no reprieve. Because as the Lincoln winds down, the U.S. Gerald R. Ford ramps up. From noon to midnight, the Ford takes the day shift. Using her electromagnetic launch system, she generates a higher tempo of sorties, launching raids when visual identification is easiest. She is faster, more efficient, and relentless. The result is a suffocating embrace. The Lincoln haunts the night. The Ford dominates the day. Between them, they ensure that for the adversary, there is no safe hour. There is only the noise of the next launch. But with two carriers, the Navy unlocks the continuous strike doctrine.
Now, I believe they have on each one of these that working carriers when they're doing this, there's landing and launches every 90 fucking seconds.
As
Crazy.
stated, the Lincoln owns the night, the Ford owns the day. By
I'm
staggering
MVC. Great to see you in the chat, my man. Hopefully you're enjoying the morning so far.
their schedules, the United States can keep strike fighters in the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no reset. There is no pause.
Exactly. And this is where this part of having three carriers out here allows us to do right here is it allows us to launch and land basically every 90 seconds. It's insane.
For the adversary, the skies are never safe. Then there's the raw volume of fire. This is the Alpha Strike. A single carrier brings about 50 strike aircraft. Two carriers, that brings nearly 100 dedicated fighters to the theater. The radar programming and software on the Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carrier allow it to process massive amounts of information instantly. For example, when small killer drones are detected flying toward the flight deck,
2 miles.
the system can quickly identify the most important threats, coordinate multiple weapon systems, and engage them by firing the close-in weapon system Phalanx guns. This automated process requires much less manual control compared to older aircraft carriers, making the Ford class much more effective at neutralizing fast, small threats. That's the kinetic defense system. But what about cyber warfare? Well, we have this military-grade app that fights to keep you stealth
Nope, that's an ad. We're going to go past
off
that.
on an annual plan. If diplomacy fails, these two ships can generate a pulse of power sufficient to overwhelm advanced air defense networks simultaneously.
So now, mind you, we are in a ceasefire, mind you. But like I said last night in my whole speech, not my opening, is that really this is not where we're going to see a reduction of anything. Right now, if anything, we have prepared ourselves now to basically really, really fuck them up. And that's what people weren't necessarily talking about. This is no peace we're about to see. This is halftime. Okay, with the whole ceasefire thing. And and again, remember, I'm not speaking about what ought be or what should be or any of these things. I'm talking about what is. And yeah, this right here, though, is absolutely hardcore.
It is saturation warfare for the enemy.
And also, I actually don't know the answer to that stuff, Steve. I don't think they do, but maybe they do. Maybe they have small class. I don't know. Sick Bastard, my man. Good morning, and thank you again for the raid with the breakfast crew this morning, or the coffee crew.
Too many jets targeting the Iranian, coming from too many vectors all at once. And let's not forget the hardware itself of the biggest aircraft carrier ever sailed. How big? Well, for comparison.
No. Basically, right now, as you know, we're in the ceasefire, but really we've put a third aircraft carrier there. And this is explaining how we're about to absolutely, we got them in a corner on the aspect of war front. Okay. So
the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier,
the United States has prepared very, very well.
Looks almost the same, but the Ford's deck size is much larger. Let's break it down further. The Ford has around 25 decks or layers spanning from the bottom of the hull to the top of the superstructure, while the Nimitz class has about 18 decks. These decks or layers span vertically through the ship's hull and superstructure, showing a significant difference in size and capacity. This size difference gives the Ford class an advantage. It typically carries up to 90 aircraft, while the Nimitz class generally accommodates around 60, though maximum configurations for both can exceed these numbers. That's roughly a 30 aircraft advantage. All of this is largely due to the Ford's larger, more open hangar bay and wider flight deck.
It's a wider flight deck because it's got a wider beam.
To give you a better idea of how the Ford accommodates such a large number of aircraft, most are stored in the hangar bay, which is directly below the flight deck, the top level used for takeoffs and landings. The hangar stretches across roughly 2/3 of the ship's length and provides space for storing, maintaining, and preparing aircraft when they're not on the flight deck. The flight deck itself covers about 4.5 to 5 acres, roughly equivalent to 3.5 to 4 American football fields in length and up to 1 football field in width. This immense area allows the carrier to accommodate and operate up to 90 jets and helicopters at maximum capacity. We make original videos from scratch and animated by humans.
Which is actually pretty insane that they actually animate all that by them as a human level. So shout out to AI Telly on that. This came out 4 days ago, and I thought that I'd share that with you. Anyways, we're going to move on. We have to. We're already going to get into overtime because I had to interject and show that video because I thought it was so badass I had to show you. Anyways, Trump's border asylum ban ruled illegal by appeals court. Man, this is crazy. Let's figure out what's happening with asylums, man. Also, you know what we haven't done? Also, we got to embrace fuck ups.
Beat yourself up over past mistakes. You are going to fuck up again in the future, quite possibly in a most spectacular fashion. Why worry about yesterday's fuck ups when you have tomorrow's fuck ups to look forward to? You are a fuck up. And fucking up is part of your growth process. Embrace the process.
Embrace thy process. All right, here we go. Let's get into this asylum ban.
Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Shauna Kalafi. A live look at the White House this evening. Last Friday, an appeals court blocked President Trump's executive order to suspend asylum access. A 3-judge panel from the Court of Appeals in D.C. found that immigration laws give people the right to apply for asylum at the border and that the president cannot restrict that. We have this from the Associated Press saying the appeals court blocked President Trump's executive order suspending asylum access at the border, agreeing with the lower court. For more on this and the impacts of this, let's bring in former DHS and White House official Andrea Flores. Thank you so much for being here with us again, Andrea.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with what exactly this executive order entailed and what does it mean now that this has been blocked in that appeals court?
So this was one of President Trump's day one executive orders, and it was about, it was titled, preventing states from certain invasion. And in this case, he was using an emergency authority and immigration law to suspend asylum law, meaning that typically if you come to the border, you do have a right to seek asylum and claim a fear of persecution. But this executive order itself turned off that right, claiming that there was an emergency at the border and it needed to be terminated. So that's what was struck down by the DC Court of Appeals. And there was actually a similar order by President Biden that was also struck down by a federal court last year that used the same authority. So you actually see this being an issue that both administrations have been struggling with legally.
And let's talk a little bit more just about the asylum process.
Yes, sir. Steve Posey, we are on some OT. We're going into OT today.
What is the purpose of asylum access? And can you give us maybe some examples of how this is being utilized in the U.S. right now?
Absolutely. So asylum law and the system was created in 1980 in the U.S. Refugee Act. And it was when the United States joined other major nations in saying that it would not return people fleeing persecution or torture. So it's a promise not to send people back to harm. That
What's up,
came out
Hero?
of the
Good morning.
World War II order internationally, where learning from the Holocaust, you don't want to turn away people who could face, imminent harm and death. And so the process is a little confusing because you can cross the border even illegally or legally, and you have a right to claim and say that, as a defense to your deportation, you fear persecution and torture if you're returned. So it is meant to be a safeguard to ensure that we follow our own domestic laws and our own international sort of order. But it's actually, and I say this as a border expert, has become increasingly hard to implement when you've had more people coming and seeking asylum because there's not another legal avenue for them to come and work in the United States. So
yes, let's get the likes up, by the way. You guys don't have to like all the craziness that's happening around the world, but you guys can like it for me and what we're doing here on Insane Wheels. So thank you for that. Double tap that screen.
It's become very overwhelmed. There's a long backlog of asylum claims, and it's become very controversial, really in both parties, on what the future of the system is. But at the heart of it is something very American, which is that it's meant to protect people seeking refuge. But all good intent, it needs to be reformed. And I've written a lot about why it needs to be reformed so it can actually better protect people who most need protecting, say a Uyghur leaving China who's facing there's an ethnic persecution there. That would be like the type of person who should use the asylum process as opposed to someone.
Oh yeah, shit. I already, it's so funny. I feel like I already said good morning to him because I thanked him for the raid and all that stuff from the coffee crew. And so I didn't realize that I haven't even seen him yet. Great to see you in the chat, my man. Good morning.
Maybe just wants to work temporarily in the United States.
And as you mentioned, suspending this asylum access at the southern border was a pillar of the president's plan to crack down on immigration. What does this ruling mean for the Trump administration's broader immigration agenda, and what comes next now?
That's a good question.
Well, the big question is, will border numbers start to go up? Because President Trump really has been given credit for managing a more quiet border, a more perceived, secure border. But what I always warn is, as long as Congress refuses to update our immigration laws, no president can ever truly secure the border, because all these laws were not really designed for the way people move today, the way they migrate today, the reasons that they're displaced. So he has already taken some steps. He, at embassies and consulates around the world, he's issued a directive saying, if there's somebody applying for a visa, you now have to ask them if they might seek asylum, because he's looking at other ways to restrict future asylum seekers. But at the border right now, it's an open question how he will respond if we start seeing more people again, because there are legitimate asylum seekers who've been turned away and sent to countries where we know they cannot be kept safe right now. So he may start seeing many of the same border challenges we've seen under past administrations.
And with the state of the world right now, all the different conflicts going on around the world, have we seen an uptick in people seeking asylum maybe in the last few years or even recently? And if this does happen, if President Trump is able to suspend asylum access and at the southern border, what could be the implications of that for those people seeking asylum?
Well, we've seen what happened in that first year. He sent an Iranian Christian woman, sent her away to Panama. She ended up being detained in a hotel. Her future is completely uncertain because asylum is supposed to be, we call it the emergency room of the immigration.
Real quick, we got Are We Not Men coming in hot with the 11 months, by the way. Very much appreciate that. He says, get the fuck out of our country. Very much appreciate the 11 months, my man. Thank you very much for your support through the 11 months, man. Goes a long way.
System. That's what it's supposed to be. And instead, you've seen Afghans be turned away, others fleeing, as you said, conflicts. So we don't even know the full impact of what.
What's up, Pablo? Good morning.
Order, who it was impacting this past year. So now the question is really, what will he do? Will he turn to the refugee system, and who will he choose to maybe protect through that? He seems to have no commitment, like past presidents, though, to keep America as a place of refuge. So I imagine he uses some other restriction to try and make sure asylum stays shut off, quite frankly. And many of the stories of people who needed protections here, we may not know. And I think it's really important that Congress eventually steps up and tries to reform this system, because.
All right, we're going to move on from here. Real quick, GOP-backed congressional map approved in Florida ahead of midterms, as we already know. Let me see if let me scroll through this before I even bring it up and see if there's any new images that we haven't actually shown you guys. And I'm going through it right now and seeing if we got anything. There may not be anything worth of value because we've already talked about the Supreme Court, all that stuff. So doesn't look like it. We're going to go ahead and get into Trump won't end war unless Iran makes nuclear weapons deal. All right, let's go ahead and bring this up. And second here. There we go.
Is take a live look over the White House at this hour as we get to the latest here on Operation Epic Fury. President Trump now saying...
And by the way, this going forward is all this morning. Everything that we're discussing is all being reported this morning. No more stuff from yesterday or anything like that.
That he's rejecting Iran's proposal for peace. And part of the reason it postpones talks on Iran's nuclear program, which the president has said is pivotal.
Yes,
as
sir,
the goal
Pablo.
is to prevent Iran from obtaining any kind of nuclear weapon. The plan would reportedly reopen the Strait of Hormuz. In exchange, there would be a lift of that U.S. blockade. But again, it would then postpone talks on Iran's nuclear program. As of now, the fragile ceasefire does remain in effect between the U.S. and Iran as Israel again today resumed strikes on the Iran-backed Hezbollah terror group over in Lebanon. Right now, I want to bring in a great friend of the show. We have Jonathan
Now that's facts right there, Magic Man.
He is with the Foundation for...
I've always said, listen, I don't care if you're European. I don't give a fuck what color skin you got. Listen, if you ain't, you know, an American citizen, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
Of democracies joining us to discuss all of this. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here with us.
Good morning, Josh. It's great to be with you again.
And Jonathan, first off, I want to start by talking about these reports that are coming in. First, Politico reported it here, but President Trump apparently rejecting this proposal for peace from Iran. And it's important to note, I said it a few times, but the big sticking point here is that it would delay talks on the nuclear program. My understanding is that's something that President Trump is never going to agree to.
You're right to point that out as being one of the main sticking points. I would actually add an additional one. Of course, on one hand, as you accurately pointed out, it would delay any discussions about the nuclear file, which is the most pressing issue. But more importantly, it is really framed as de-escalation, whereas in reality, that proposal by Tehran would solidify Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. So it is not necessarily the most genuine or honest proposal from the Islamic Republic. It is really a diplomatic messaging, at least trying to appease their support base, saying that Tehran is exhausting diplomatic options, whereas in reality, it's not true. Now, it is very interesting for Tehran to shift its position. In the beginning stages of the war, if you saw their 10 demands and then another wave of proposals that was introduced to the United States and Pakistan, in all cases, Tehran was being maximalist in a sense that they wanted one agreement that would discuss everything beyond nuclear. They wanted to get reassurances on their proxies being immune from attacks, their stance on the Strait of Hormuz being somehow legitimate and solidified, terror financing, and of course the nuclear file. But now all of a sudden, they are really worried about this blockade, and they really want to ensure something new, at least short-term and immediate, so they can relieve this economic pressure. And if that's any indication, it is really telling us that the blockade is working. Now, the question is, what is Washington using the blockade for? Is it to get concessions, or is it to pursue some kind of a internal economic collapse? I would say both cases would be a win for Washington, but with any economic pressure, it comes down to persistence and rigorous enforcement.
All right, real quick before he continues the lines of questioning, I want to show you guys what I said last night on the diamond effect, okay? Give me a sec. Let me find it here. Here we go. So this is, we were discussing the actual title of the show is Iran War, quote, fake peace exposed, what they're not telling you. And so after I showed you guys the step-by-step this morning of what's going on with the third aircraft carrier, for instance, during the ceasefire, this is my opening from last night. If you guys missed it, you know what I mean? So here we go. So real quick, I want to go into the aspect of the title, right? We use the word fake peace exposed. So tonight I want to challenge the word peace, because what we may be witnessing is not peace at all, but a strategic pause, a pause where the headlines calm down while the machinery of conflict keeps moving underneath the surface. Military assets remain in place. Carrier groups are still deployed. Missile defense systems remain active. Intelligence operations don't stop during a ceasefire. In many cases, they accelerate. Nations use quiet moments like this to reposition, reassess, and prepare for what's coming next. At the same time, the real battlefield may no longer be just military, it's economic. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most important arteries on Earth for global energy. Any disruption there impacts oil, shipping, fertilizer, insurance rates, and ultimately the price ordinary people pay around the world. Missiles grab headlines, but tanker routes move economies. And even if direct confrontation cools, conflict doesn't necessarily disappear. Proxy groups remain active, regional militias, maritime attacks, cyber warfare, and covert operations can keep pressure high without triggering full-scale war. Peace at the top does not always mean peace on the ground. So the real question tonight is simple. Are we seeing a genuine peace or simply an intermission before the next phase? And to me, I just see this as halftime.
You're 100% right on that.
Shit.
Yeah.
Just drop the mic right there real quick. All right. So let's go ahead and bring this story back up. I'm not really interested in the rest of what this homeboy's got to say, to be honest. Let's go ahead and see if there's like a Trump post or any governmental official post or anything. Let's see here. Let's see. Iran looks like Iran said something here.
And speaking of Iran's president, I want to pop this up. This is actually coming in from Iran International, the English version there. As they say, the Iranian president said today that U.S. military bases in the region endangered host countries and allowed Iran to treat their territory as legitimate targets. He said that foreign presence in the region did not improve security and instead increased tensions. He added that any insecurity in the Strait of Hormuz was the responsibility of the U.S.
What's up, brother GEG? Good morning.
And of Israel. Anything new, anything that stands out to you from this statement? It kind of sounds like more of the same.
It does, but it's indicative of Tehran's ambitions. It's interesting that they initiated this conflict, or perhaps the response to the war waged by the United States and Israel,
Man, my man Wildcard in the building. Shout out to you. Hopefully you're enjoying the morning.
by targeting the Persian Gulf state allies. Now, you need to look at whom they targeted the most. The United Arab Emirates was struck more than any other country, and close to that was Kuwait. On one hand, they do frame this in a sense that I think that the language that they use is whatever country is hosting American bases. But in reality, another angle here is they were punishing the countries that were even considering joining the Abraham Accords and normalizing relations with Israel. If you look at how they struck the UAE and Bahrain, these two countries that have whatnot engaging diplomatically with Israel were the countries that had their Israeli embassies or hotels that were hosting Israeli staff were also struck. This was Tehran's message, very clear, that any pact with the United States would be devastating for these countries, but pursuing any form of relationship with Israel would even be more catastrophic. That, of course, is Tehran's message. That was their message during October 7th, where they tried to somehow...
All right, we don't need to hear anything about that shit. Let's see any other updates. It looks like IAF, the Israeli Air Force, actually comes out with something here.
On your screen, this is coming in from the Israeli Air Force, as they say the Air Force attacked and eliminated yesterday 5 terrorists from the Hezbollah terror organization who were operating near IDF forces in southern Lebanon with identification and guidance from the 146th Division forces. These are additional violations of the ceasefire understandings by the Hezbollah terror organization. The IDF will continue to operate to remove threats to the citizens of the state of Israel and IDF forces.
Shit. All right. I really don't care about what they do over there in Hezbollah. I mean, it has nothing to do with us in the United States. Anyways, King Charles, all right, and Queen Camilla to bid farewell on last day of U.S. state visit, which is today, by the way. So let's go ahead and bring that up. Here we go.
Now, I do want to get you right back into some of the big stories that we are covering at this hour. And as I mentioned here, we are going to see that.
Oh, man, Pops, you've missed a great show, by the way. You know, I don't recommend people to like necessarily go back all the time and go watch the whole thing, you know, but I'll tell you what, go watch the whole thing later. This has been a great show.
Farewell ceremony.
Good morning.
That takes place for King Charles and Queen Camilla. That is coming up at the White House sometime around 10:50 a.m. Eastern time. And right now I want to discuss more about the trip itself and some of the highlights, lowlights, all of it. Let's bring in Josh Rahm. He is, of course, our royal analyst and commentator. We love to see him here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here, Josh.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to be back on Live Now.
We appreciate it as well. So first off, I want to...
Yo, just for clarification, Tiffany is married. So, and both her and her husband are in the chat all the time.
Ask you, because today we'll kind of round out that 4-day visit by King Charles, Queen Camilla. What has kind of stood out to you overall? A lot has happened here. So break down kind of what stood out to you about the trip.
Well, there have been a few things. First and foremost, the kind of ceremonial welcome that their majesties received in Washington was absolutely sublime. We love to see it. Then, of course...
I got a question for this guy already.
Why are you gay? You are gay.
The joint session of Congress. King Charles, of course, the first time a monarch has addressed a joint session of Congress since his mother did back in the 90s. That, I think, was a real highlight. Yesterday was very personal, very somber as they headed to New York to 9/11 commemorations. And we actually saw as well Their Majesty slightly break away from protocol when it came to the Queen hugging one of the widows of 9/11 as well. And
Oh my God. Yeah, we broke protocol for hugging somebody. Man, people are so lame. I'm going to be honest. We already watched the whole, King Charles addressing Congress. Let's see here. There's a picture of them all here outside. Let's see if there's any other pictures here. A historic state visit honoring 250 years of shared heritage in photos. That's coming from the White House. Anything else? Because we don't need to sit here and hear about for 14, 15 minutes about this whole him leaving. I mean, you guys the news is that he's leaving today. All right. Grady Judd, sex trafficking Santa arrested in Sting in Florida. A Florida man known for playing Santa Claus at Polk County Christmas events was one of nearly 20 people arrested during an undercover operation that focused on child predators. Shit. According to police, 68-year-old Thomas Allen Hicks, who often plays Santa, responded to an ad on a known prostitute site. The ad was posted by an undercover detective that offered a 15-year-old girl for sex. Jesus, man. I just can't with these people, man. I just cannot do it.
And I want to get you right back into some of the big stories that we are covering. Viewer discretion advised as we head over to Florida here. That is where a man known for playing Santa Claus at Polk County Christmas events in Florida was one of nearly
let's get the likes up.
people arrested during an undercover operation that focused on child predators. The Polk County Sheriff's Office and several law enforcement agencies launched a week-long undercover investigation, Operation Child Protector, that focused on child predators. Now, it started April 20th, and of course, today.
What's up, Extra Surprise? Good morning to you, by the way. Happy Titty Thursday.
April 30th. Detectives worked with investigators from several different sheriff's offices, police departments, and the Florida Department of Financial Services Criminal Investigations Division to arrest 19 suspects. We actually heard from Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd as he talked about all of this, and I want to play that for you here on Live Now from Fox. Again, viewer discretion is advised.
He said that twice. Oh, boy. Looks like Grady's going to go insane over here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being with us today. It is truly, truly an honor to be standing before you with our State Attorney, Brian Haas. You've heard me say before, he is just the very best. He's hands-on, as he and his team were in this.
And yes, by the way, and Pablo, he actually died yesterday, but they are reporting it today, early this morning. But yes, David Allen Coe did die, unfortunately.
Protracted investigation. And our CFO, Blaise Ngolia. What's really exciting about our CFO is that this is kind of the first time we've had a CFO that goes, hey, I want to be involved with my criminal investigation division at every level of crime and fraud in this state. And he's here with us as well. Chief Terry Story, the Auburndale Police Department's here with us.
Yeah, see, that's unacceptable. We got to get the likes up, man. Double tap that screen. Come on, man.
This and the three of them will speak. We also have Detective Henrik Osted from the Marion County Sheriff's Office representing his sheriff. Sheriff Vint Crawford from Hardee County, my colleague and friend, helps us on every operation. There are other groups that helped us in this investigation. However, they were unable to be with us. The Highlands County Sheriff's Office, the Osceola County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, cool. Get to it.
They came here to see how we did this because they want to go after these child predators in San Francisco.
Yeah, SST, it's definitely a sad day for them. Terrible.
You know, that's like fishing in a barrel.
And for the world.
There's the Lake City Police Department and the Orlando Police Department that were very valuable to us as well. We're calling this operation Poke Around and Find Out. Child Predator 8.
Poke around and find out. Wow, that's crazy.
And it's important to understand that this particular operation was only 1 week long. We started on Monday, April the 20th, and by Sunday, April 26th, we'd wrapped it up. We arrested 19 people, 16 of which traveled thinking they were going to engage children in illegal sex. We call them child deviants, child predators, pedophiles. There's not enough bad words to really talk about all of the things that they did and said and the photographs they sent, thinking that they were sending them to children. But let me highlight some of the folks. Now I want to start, we teased this thing yesterday and there was a lot of work. You know, Christmas time is very important. We like Christmas. Scott, here, you can hold this. But as you may well understand, there's this fellow called Santa Claus. And we arrested Santa Claus. Now, I want all the children that may be watching this to understand it's not the real Santa Claus, okay? This is a guy, though, who is well known in Polk County and Central Florida and Lakeland as a for-hire Santa Claus. In fact, one of our NGOs that was working with us said, oh, my goodness.
No shit, Pablo. Oh, wow.
I've already booked him for a party next Christmas. Nah, that's over with. But it's scary because this guy was well respected in the community. In fact, here's a picture that he took with me at a Rotary meeting just a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was very active in our community. And then, of course, you've seen the picture of the Lakeland Christmas Parade. For those not from the area, the Lakeland Christmas Parade is a big, big, big deal. The Junior League puts this on every year, and it is top quality. Mr. and Ms. Claus, we have fogged her out of this picture, are in this. For at least the last decade, he was Santa Claus. No worries. He's not going to be Santa Claus this next year. But who is this guy that hides behind this mask as Santa Claus?
Now, that's the facts right there, Steve Easy. Trust no one.
While he has these sexual proclivities to batter children and, in fact, traveled to a location thinking he was going to have sex with a little girl. His name is Tom Hicks. He's 68 years old. He works for Tri-County, a mental health and drug addiction group, in marketing. He's a preacher.
And he's a preacher.
40 years.
Oh, wow.
He is a professional Santa Claus. He is well regarded in the community. Detectives working the operation this last week showed me a photograph of his children sitting on Santa Claus's lap while he and his wife stood next to them. Thousands and thousands.
No wonder why he wanted to be Santa Claus. Have those children on his lap so he can touch them and feel them and, oh, gross ass motherfuckers. You know what I mean?
And thousands of children have sat on this guy's lap, thinking he was Santa Claus.
I hate hearing
when in
that
fact
shit.
What he was a child sex predator. So what did he do on this occasion? Our colleague from Marion County was the undercover and did a really remarkable job. He responded to an ad online and he said, hey, I'm looking to have sex with a 13-year-old child, a little girl.
Jesus.
And he thought he was talking to the father of the child. We was talking to our undercover detective. And he said, I just want to have 1 hour's worth of sex and I'll pay $200.
$200? What?
And then he asked the father, do you want to be in the room or are you going to be in the room while I have sex with your daughter?
Oh my God, there's no way this is fucking real.
And they said, no, not really. He said, well, don't worry, I'll be gentle. I'll be real gentle. I'm kind of old and I'll be really easy with her.
Oh my God. Oh my fucking God, yo.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's how dangerous these people are. So how about his criminal history? Zero criminal history.
Zero.
How about the remorse he showed when he was arrested? Zero remorse when he was arrested. The only thing he was concerned about was his reputation as Santa Claus. Interestingly enough, After our investigation's over with, we embed Chris Hansen, and you remember him from the old To Catch a Predator day. He has a program, and he goes with undercovers across the nation.
No kidding, Randy. 100,000%.
He was with us. Tom Hicks talked to Chris for 40 minutes and told him some really remarkable things. Well, I understand Chris is supposed to be on Jesse Waters tonight, and he'll probably share more details with you there or either on True Blue. But I want you to understand that the person behind this happy face is a deviant. He's a pedophile. And we have presented felonies to our state attorney and his ace #1 team, and we will do our best to keep him locked up in prison for the rest of his life.
Good.
And we're broadcasting
zero fucking mercy
this today because in addition to that, if by some chance he were to get out in the future, we want to make sure he is no longer a Santa Claus. I talked to the real Santa Claus today, and he's pissed. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, no doubt on that, Randy. Like, I totally understand.
Santa Claus said, it's people like that that give me a bad reputation. And here I spend all this time going all around the world delivering presents to wonderful little boys and girls. Sheriff, I'm glad you got him locked up.
Oh, man. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get into our next story here. Trump assassination attempt. New photos show suspect in hotel room, DOJ says. Now, I'm not sure why this is coming out just an hour and a half ago, but we do have it. And I saw these photos actually a couple of nights ago while I was on Instagram. So he was not a selfie of himself, but it was him taking a picture in the mirror in the hotel, and you can see the weapons that he's carrying on his body. So let's go and bring that up and show you guys what we're looking at here real quick.
Welcome back here on Live Now.
We're doing Serious OT today.
On Fox, the time 8:07 on the East Coast and 5:07 on the West Coast. Taking a live look there on the left-hand side of your screen.
Make sure you guys hit the like button for us doing OT today, man. Double tap that screen.
A live look over the White House as we get right back into some of the big stories that we are covering. Take a look here at some of these photos coming in out of court, as later today, a hearing is set for the man accused of attempting to assassinate President Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. During that detention hearing, prosecutors will likely argue that Cole Allen should remain behind.
So look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 4. Well, there's actually, I think, 2 knives there. Yeah, it's got to be 2 knives there, knife there, pistol there. I'm not sure.
While his defense will say that a bond should be set so that he can be released. It's not clear if Allen will physically be in the courtroom for that hearing. We're working to figure all that out. Federal investigators allege the 31-year-old California man stormed through a security checkpoint at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That was Saturday night, and some of the video there you saw on your screen came in from President Trump. The Justice Department adding that more charges are possible as the investigation continues. Now, the Associated Press reporting a social media profile for a man with the same name and a photo that appears to match the suspect lists him as working part-time for the last 6 years at a company that offers admissions counseling and test preparation.
That's right, Pablo. Donate now. No tax or no tea. That's a fact, by the way.
Services to aspiring college students. The AP also reporting in a message sent to family members just minutes before the attack that Allen described himself as
Steve Posey, or dude, we haven't hit that chirp not a single time this stream. Just so you know, not a single time.
As quote, a friendly.
That might be my
assassin.
chair hitting the
Associated Press saying that it reviewed a copy of the message, which
Squeaking
did
a little
not
bit,
name
maybe.
President Trump directly, but denounced the recent actions by his administration and the U.S. government in general. Want to bring in Rory Safer, founder of Safer Law, to help break down all of this here, what we can expect from today's hearing and the case itself. Thank you so much, Rory, for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. And first off, I want to ask you as we go kind of back to basics here. Today is a detention hearing for Cole Allen. Can you break down for folks out there what exactly happens during a detention hearing and whether a decision comes out right away?
So Monday was the initial appearance. I've seen some outlets calling that an arraignment, which isn't quite correct. That usually happens later after a grand jury indicts the defendant. So what we saw Monday was just kind of the unsealing of the complaint, which is just advising of the charges that they can prove now. So there's no plea. The defendant didn't have to enter one there. There should be an indictment within about 30 days. Could be longer just because it's supposed to be within 30 days, but sometimes that's not strictly enforced in these kind of high profile cases. So that would be the next step. As far as the detention hearing, it's kind of unclear if we'll have a decision today. Some judges will do that, and a lot of judges will do that, and then some may take a little bit of time to review. But probably, I would imagine, probably today.
As far as what factors overall are taken into consideration, I mean, we're talking about charges that include attempting to assassinate the president of the U.S. So what kind of factors are taken into account here by a judge to determine whether or not the suspect can be released on bond, granted bond, all of that?
They're going to look at mainly protecting the community and/or what kind of threat level is this person? So obviously, when you've got these more serious charges, like attempting to assassinate the president or any kind of murder charge, these are very common things that the prosecutors will move for. So yeah, they'll look at things like the dangerousness of the defendant, as well as whether he's a flight risk, that kind of thing.
Looking at the potential for more charges, Fox News, other outlets reporting from the Department of Justice that potentially Cole Allen could face additional charges as the investigation moves forward. Any idea what charges we're talking about, or is that kind of still up in the air? Because we have an idea of the charges he faces, and I believe there's about 3 of them.
Yeah, so this complaint that we have is kind of a starting point. I believe the U.S. attorney mentioned that there was an assault on a federal officer as well on Saturday night, and I don't believe I saw that count make it into the complaint. So there could be a number of reasons, but maybe it's that they haven't confirmed, whose round struck the Secret Service officer. So maybe they're doing ballistics, and these are just, I'm just speculating, but these are things that could be.
Right, exactly. I was just about to say that it's a little bit of speculation, but we're kind of, all of it is a little bit of a guess because today's the hearing. We already know about that whole selfie thing. Let's see if there's any other images. We've already seen all of the actual evidence of the knives, the pistol, the shotgun. We've already seen all of those things. See if there's any other official that makes any type of statement. Looks like not. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank each and every single one of you guys enough for being here and showing the amount of love that you guys do, as well as being engaged, hitting that like button, as well as, just listen, man, supporting the channel, man. It definitely goes a long way just by you guys watching. So listen, we're going to be rating our buddy Chatting with Stacks. He is live right now. Make sure you guys let him know that we're coming through with the Mike Ball raid. And until tomorrow morning, we'll be back tomorrow morning for more of the world's madness. But until then, God bless everyone. We'll see you guys very soon, and take care of yourselves.
From the depths of darkness, a voice emerges, a host with a fire burning in his soul. With a heart steel and a spirit unbroken, he rides on 2 wheels ready to claim his throne. Amidst the chaos and the thunderous roar, insane wheels rise.